Yes, guys, welcome back to flatcapeurotalk, and we're going to be doing a fantasy video for once. Something I haven't done in the past year, and let me know what you think of it, everybody, because I'm actually quite new to fantasy. I'm a bit of a novice when it comes to it all. I've only really done it in kind of a snake draft, kind of way before, where you draft your team and you're kind of sort of stuck with that team, for the rest of the season, and it's sort of check up on it every once in a while, but I never really took it too seriously. And this time I'm kind of thinking of doing it because maybe you guys can help me along. Maybe it could be our fantasy Premier League team, because I would like to everybody to really, kind of give their sort of criticisms, their thoughts, their advice, in the comments, please, because I am a bit of a novice to this. Also, I am really looking forward to what you guys have to think about this. Maybe just go through my initial selections here, starting in goals. I do actually have Raya and Pope. I didn't think about investing too much, in the keeper position, mostly because it didn't seem like they get you too many points, unless it's like an Allison or like an Ederson. But maybe when it comes to goalkeepers like Raya and Pope, I feel like maybe they could outdo probably their price tag there of 4.5 and 5 and 5 there with Pope. He's moving from a Burnley side, which he kept up, in the Premier League for multiple seasons, to a Newcastle side that is going to be trying to achieve things this season. And if they do play, a bit defensive football over there, I could see Nick Pope, thriving in that Newcastle team and maybe getting more clean sheets than he did, for Burnley. So I'm actually really excited for that one. It felt like a no brainer, maybe getting Nick Pope. It just looked like a bargain. When it comes to Raya, you just saw so much how Brentford sort of collapsed when they didn't have him last season from that injury. So I feel like, again, Raya is just going to be perhaps a reliable keeper. I'll probably go with Pope, though, to start most games. Cucurella, I've decided to put in there just because, he looks like he's making his move not to Man City, but to Chelsea, everybody. And with that move to Chelsea, I'm thinking he actually could get into that, left wing back spot, straight away, and could be, causing lots of damage out there. And I'm really looking forward to that. So, yeah, watch that space. I really feel like, Cucurella could tear apart the Premier League if he plays in Thomas Tuchel's teams. Whereas, maybe for Man City's, I'm just not too sure, how well he would do. Maybe he's not, suited for that, ultra possession, based style. I think he's an exceptionally technically gifted player, but I feel like Thomas Tuchel's, he could somehow, just do a bit better. Lamptey just looked kind of like a total bargain. I know he's been kind of used in and out, for Brighton, and he didn't play too many games last season. But if he does, get a lot of games under his belt this season, I could see him tearing it apart, for them. And they are going to be, probably trying to climb a bit higher up the table than they normally have, this season, Brighton. So I could see Lamptey, playing a huge part in that. Reece James, again, felt like a bargain. Maybe it wasn't. I feel like he could contribute a lot of goals and assists if he does play that right wing back spot consistently for Tuchel this season. At one stage, he was almost their top scorer. So I feel like, James could come into this season, if he is given that sort of freedom to go forward and tear it apart once again. Joao Cancelo, just one of my favorite players just in world football. At one stage, in the beginning of the season, he was doing really well last season, but then, it didn't really go so well for him. And, or not even not didn't go so well for him. What am I saying? I just felt like, he didn't, really contribute as many goals and assists as I would have liked to. At one stage, it looked like he was on fire. And then, maybe he was just playing a bit more defensive, was being rotated all over the pitch, when it came to his position. So Joao Cancelo, would love to see him, really tear apart the Premier League this season. So I had to take him for 7 million. And then Perisic, with how good he already looked, at the wingback spot, in the preseason, I feel like Conte is going to put him in as soon as he possibly feels comfortable with putting him in. Perhaps even Southampton, he's going to be playing in the first game of the season. I could see Perisic being an excellent asset. So I felt like that was a bargain as well. James Madison, if he stays at Leicester City, this could be, again, somebody that is going to do really well this season. A lot of the burden is going to be put on him by Brendan Rodgers, and Brendan Rodgers been, kind of backing him up, saying he's going to be, kind of one of the best players, in the Premier League, coming into this season, or, some sort of, kind of praise that he gave him. And so I'm kind of going to back Madison to do well. And for 8, I believe it says there, didn't seem like too much. Salah, when you look at Salah, he's just one of those players. Not only is he going to be Liverpool's, front man for all the goals, but he's also going to be expected, I think, to get a bit more creativity, with the assists too. But he takes penalties. I think he's basically the next best, kind of goal scorer. Probably, if I imagine, one of the next best fantasy players next to Harry Kane. Marcus Rashford. I feel like this could be a season where Marcus Rashford does blow up for Man U. It could be him or Martial, but I am going to go for Marcus Rashford, as maybe that wild card, player under the Eric Ten Hag sort of revolution. Let me know what you think of that, guys. But with Rashford, I'm just feeling like, for that price tag of 6.5, I feel like he could, maybe just, sort of, make that price tag look pretty silly and he could end up, just blowing up this season. St. Maximin, sort of the same thing, but just about the price tag, I just feel like he's going to have a good season. I know Newcastle, feel like he needs to work harder, off the ball, and his defensive work rate isn't great, but I think they're going to still need to rely on him in some sort of way, up front. And unless they get rid of him, then I'd probably be pretty disappointed with this one. But I expect him to continue to get goals and assists. And I got him last season in my sort of snake draft, Premier League team, and he actually did really well for me because he was listed, I think, as a forward, last season, and I thought that was an absolute cheat code. So I got him, and he did really well for me. And then Hwang Hee-chan, has also been listed here as a forward, or as a midfielder, which is, I think, a bit unfair to him. And I wish he was listed as a forward because I think he'd be more of a deal. But he has signed a new deal with Wolves. I think he is going to be expected to carry a bit of the burden, for the goal scoring. So I just kind of, decided to sign him. And I feel like he did look pretty decent in the Premier League. And I'll repeat it again. I think he's going to be expected to get some of the goals for them. Dennis Undav, a player for Brighton that, again, similar logic to Huang, is being brought in, to, take a lot of the goals, a lot of the goal burden off of other players, and, kind of being expected to be that sort of new goal scorer for the team. And so Dennis Undav, I feel like for 5.5, if you have to get three forwards like you're expected to, I think wasn't a bad deal. Mateta, again, I didn't want to spend too much on forwards, but with Mateta, I believe he just signed a new contract with Crystal Palace. He did, play the majority, I think, of the games towards like the end of the season, if I'm not mistaken. I could be totally wrong there, but he looked like he was playing a lot of games towards the end of the season. He looked decent for them. Perhaps, Vieira really likes him. That's the kind of vibe that I'm getting, is that Vieira really likes him. So I decided to get him. And Crystal Palace, I expect to be scoring goals this season. So maybe Mateta will be on the end of some of them. Harry Kane, just just takes penalties, is going to be Spurs' main creator, as well as one of the main goal scorers. I feel like that was a no-brainer. And also the 11.5 versus 13, I feel like Harry Kane is probably more of a steal for the 11.5 than even Salah is for the 13. But that is my whole team there. Everybody, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Which suggestions, which changes you would be making. There's some Arsenal players that I think are some deals available, but I'd rather not stoop to that level unless it's desperately needed. But let me know what you think of those choices. Quickly, for my snake draft, which I'm still going to be doing, that kind of league that I spoke about earlier that I always continue to do. If I'm in kind of the first round, if I'm in the beginning of the round, or if I'm in the middle of the round or the end of the round, these are sort of the players that I think could technically potentially still be available on the market. It's not too many players like in this league. It's only like 7 or 8, if I'm not mistaken. With Salah, Kane, Son, De Bruyne, Holland, I feel like Salah might be my first pick, Kane my second, Son my third, De Bruyne my fourth, and then Holland my fifth. If those were all first round scenarios, for my first pick. With Holland, I might take a bit of a risk if I'm put in that situation. I think I would have to, but I am uncomfortable maybe with picking him because of those injuries. De Bruyne as well, injuries, and also maybe not getting picked as much as I'd probably want him to be if he is my first pick. My first pick, I feel like, has to play a lot of games, but I do want a lot of Premier League fantasy points from them, of course. Second round, Mahrez. I feel like Mahrez is going to have a really good season. I was almost considering him for my, kind of league that we were looking at earlier, but on top of that, he is going to be expected to take a bit of the burden, I think, for the goals and the assists, since Sterling, as well as, other players like Zinchenko, and some forwards like Ferran Torres, and, players in the past, have been leaving, and Jesus, of course, as well. So I feel like he is going to be, taking a bit of the burden there. James Madison, like we said before, going to be expected to be having a huge season for Leicester, considering, they've lost a lot of their kind of, attacking threat, or just the fact that they haven't made a lot of attacking signings. And, he's going to be expected to be the main man. Trent, I think he can get so many goals and assists. I almost wanted to get him for that defense for that league we were looking at earlier, but just felt like it was a bit too expensive, with versus what Cancelo gets. I feel like Cancelo, with that 7 million or whatever he cost, with fantasy. I feel like he could get close to Trent's numbers if given the chance, but Trent is probably a bit more reliable in fantasy, at least I would imagine. I'm guessing. And then yeah, Cancelo you can see there. Third round, Andy Robertson again. He actually surprised me with how many assists he got last season. I think he'd be a bit of a steal if he was available in the third round. Luis Diaz, I feel like he could have a good season. I'm not too sure though. I feel like he might have in a season of like 8 goals and 6 assists, which could be good enough. But I would want him to probably hit more like 10 or 12 goals, and I feel like that's a bit harder, than I don't know. I just don't know what type of season Luis Diaz is going to have. He's a fantastic player, but he could be a bit of a risk. Ivan Toney, totally forgot about that guy, and I feel like he is expected to have a good season for Brentford and is expected to carry a lot of the burden for them. Jack Grealish, I think, is tipped to probably have a good season. All forwards or midfielders that go into Man City, I feel like they'll have that rough first season. Then the following season, they do kind of shine pretty well for Pep Guardiola. And like we said, with Jesus as well as Sterling gone, I think Jack Grealish is going to be, given a bit more, kind of responsibility, and I think he'll thrive as well. It seems like he's getting along with Erling Haaland over there, so he might play a lot and he could get a lot of fantasy points. Kulusevski as well, I think, goes without saying, had an exceptional start to his Premier League in January, and then he can move into, maybe carry that sort of form into the Premier League. But let me know, everybody, what you think of these picks. Feel free to be as critical, as loving, as harsh, as thoughtful, whatever you like in the comments, because I kind of want this to be your Premier League fantasy team as well. I'm going to take a lot of your guys' thoughts into consideration, and the ones that I will shout them out, and I will give you credit for it. But everybody, smash that like on your way out, and as always, I will be seeing you.